Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here today. I want to talk to you about something we rarely discuss openly: the pain inflicted by others' damage that is not accidental but intentional. We all experience moments in life where the weight of our circumstances makes us question our worth. Moments where the pain feels intentional, like someone or something set out to break us down. You've been there sitting in the aftermath of hurt, betrayal, loss, wondering why you were chosen for that particular storm. But let me tell you something: pain is not proof of your weakness. It is evidence of your strength. There is a purpose in your pain, but it doesn't define you. Imagine a time when you felt buried under the weight of life. It could have been the loss of a job, the failure of a relationship, or someone you trusted betraying you in the worst possible way. Maybe it felt like everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and you were left in the dark, unsure of how to move forward. It's in those moments when the world seems to conspire against you that you feel the depth of your wounds. But think about this: when a seed is planted in the ground, it doesn't panic because it's buried. It doesn't cry out because it's covered in dirt. That seed is not destroyed by the soil, it is prepared by it. In fact, it is only in the darkness that the seed begins to transform. Only under pressure does it begin to sprout. What was once hidden, what was once beneath the surface, begins to rise up stronger, fuller, and more resilient than before. That seed, my friends, is you. I want you to hear me clearly. You were not meant to stay buried. You were not created to remain in that pit of pain. You were meant to rise. And yes, the pain you've endured might have been intentional. But you have a choice. You can let it bury you forever, or you can allow it to be the very soil from which you grow. You were not created to be defined by the wounds inflicted upon you. You were created to overcome them. You see, I once spoke to someone who had been through years of adversity, the kind that most people would crumble under. But there was something different about this person. Despite everything they'd lost, despite every betrayal, they made a decision. They decided that they would not be defined by what others did to them. They refused to let their setbacks keep them down. Instead, they used every painful experience as fuel to push them forward. They told me how at their lowest point, they made a simple commitment every morning. They would wake up and speak life into themselves. It wasn't grand gestures or big, miraculous events that changed their life. No, it was the small, consistent actions that built resilience. Every day, they made a choice to get up, to push forward, to believe that they were more than what had happened to them. Slowly but surely, their life began to transform. And today, they stand stronger than ever. Not because they were free from hardship, but because they refused to let the hardship define them. Now, maybe you've been hurt in ways no one else can understand. Maybe life has knocked you down so many times that you've lost count. But you are still here. And that is proof that there is something inside of you that cannot be broken. You have a strength in you that hasn't even been fully realized yet. You are stronger than the pain you've endured. Stronger than the betrayal, the rejection, the loss. Those things do not define you, your response to them does. Think of all the times in your life when you were convinced you wouldn't make it, yet here you are. You may have been bruised, scarred, and wounded, but you survived. That is not an accident. You survived because your story isn't finished yet. You survived because you have something greater ahead of you. But survival is not enough. You weren't created just to survive, you were created to thrive. And thriving requires one powerful thing: personal responsibility. It requires you to stop waiting for someone else to come and rescue you. It demands that you stop looking at your past and start focusing on the future. It means taking ownership of your life right here, right now, no matter what has happened. Because the truth is, no one else is responsible for your success. Not your boss, not your family, not your circumstances. You are. And I know that might feel heavy. It might feel like too much to bear. But understand this: the moment you take responsibility for your life, for your healing, for your future, is the moment you take your power back. The moment you decide that your story isn't over, that you have the strength to rise, is the moment you begin to rewrite your future. Every single one of you has the power to change the trajectory of your life. Right now. No matter how broken, no matter how damaged you may feel, You are more powerful than you think. But it starts with a decision. A decision to believe in yourself. A decision to take responsibility for your own success. A decision to stop letting the pain define you and start using it to fuel your growth. So here's my challenge to you today. Make that decision. Decide that no matter what has happened, no matter who has tried to break you, you will rise. Decide that you are going to take ownership of your life, that you are going to take control of your future. Because your future is not determined by your past. It is determined by what you do right now in this moment. You've been buried long enough. It's time to grow. You've been in the dark long enough. It's time to rise. And when you do, the world will see what was always inside of you: a leader, a fighter, a survivor who was never defined by the damage, but by the decision to overcome it. So rise. Take responsibility for your success. And let nothing and no one hold you back from becoming everything you were created to be. We live in a world that celebrates quick wins, instant success, and overnight fame. Everywhere you look, it seems like someone else is reaching the top, making it big, and living the life of their dreams. But what we don't see is the journey they took to get there. We don't see the countless days they spent working in the dark, the hours of effort that no one clapped for, the quiet moments when they wanted to give up but didn't. The truth is, lasting success is never built overnight. It's built brick by brick, day by day, through small, consistent actions. Let me tell you a story. There was someone who struggled for years to find their footing in life. Every door they knocked on seemed to slam in their face. No matter how hard they tried, success seemed to slip further away. They found themselves in a place where it felt easier to quit than to keep going. But deep down, they couldn't let go of their dream. They couldn't shake the feeling that they were meant for more, even though the world seemed determined to tell them otherwise. So they made a decision. It wasn't a grand, life-changing decision that would turn everything around overnight. No, it was a small, simple decision every day they would take one step. Just one. No matter how insignificant it seemed, no matter how little progress they felt they were making, they committed to moving forward. Some days that step was just getting out of bed. Other days it was making a phone call, sending an email, practicing their craft. Little by little, step by step, they moved forward. At first, nothing seemed to change. It felt like they were running in place, like all their effort was in vain. But here's the beauty of consistency. Even when it feels like nothing is happening, something is happening. Every small action, every single step is moving you closer to your goal. It's like the process of water carving a canyon at first glance. The flow seems gentle, harmless, but over time, that steady stream creates something magnificent. The power is in the persistence. Months passed, then years. And slowly, imperceptibly, things began to shift. Doors started to open. Opportunities appeared. And before long, the person who felt like giving up, who was ready to quit, found themselves living the very dream they once thought was out of reach. Their success wasn't born in a single moment of brilliance. It was the result of thousands of moments of quiet, unseen effort. What I want you to understand is this: greatness is not the result of a single action, but of countless small actions repeated over time. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally, it comes from what you do consistently. It's easy to be motivated for a day or a week, but what happens when the excitement wears off? What happens when the results don't come as quickly as you hoped? That's when consistency becomes your greatest ally. When you commit to the process, when you decide to show up every day, even when it's hard, even when no one is watching, you become unstoppable. Maybe you're sitting here today feeling like you're stuck in that place, like no matter what you do, nothing is changing. Maybe you've been putting in the work, but you're not seeing the results you hoped for. And you're tired. You're frustrated. You're wondering if it's all worth it. Let me tell you, it is. Your breakthrough is coming. But it's not going to come because of one big leap. It's going to come because you kept showing up. It's going to come because you refused to give up on the days when it felt pointless. is going to come because you chose to keep walking when everyone else sat down. There was a time when I had to learn this lesson myself. I was working on a goal that felt impossible to reach. Every day I would put in the effort, and every day I felt like I was hitting a wall. I remember sitting there thinking, why isn't this working? Why aren't things happening faster? But then I realized something. I was focusing on the outcome instead of the process. I was so fixated on where I wanted to be that I forgot to appreciate the value of every step along the way. That's when I made a shift. I decided to focus on the process. I told myself that if I could just take one small step every day, that would be enough. I didn't need to sprint to the finish line. I just needed to keep moving forward. And slowly things began to change. Not because I found some magic formula, but because I stopped worrying about how fast I was going and started celebrating the fact that I was still moving. That shift in mindset changed everything for me. So here's what I want to say to you today. Don't underestimate the power of small, consistent actions. You don't have to conquer the world in a day. You don't need to have all the answers right now. All you need to do is take one step, and then another, and another. Over time, those steps will add up to something extraordinary. Look around at the people who inspire you. I guarantee you their success didn't come from one big dramatic action. It came from years of showing up, years of doing the work when it wasn't glamorous, years of staying committed to the process, even when no one else believed in them. Consistency is the key that unlocks the door to your future. It's the difference between those who dream about success and those who achieve it. It's what separates those who wish for change from those who make it happen. And the best part is, it's something you can start today. You don't have to wait for the perfect moment or the right opportunity. You can start right now with the resources you have, with the time you have, with the energy you have. All it takes is a decision. So here's my challenge to you. What's the one small thing you can commit to doing every day that will move you closer to your goal? Maybe it's waking up a little earlier. Maybe it's spending 5 minutes a day working on that idea you've been putting off. Maybe it's reading one chapter of a book that will expand your mind. It doesn't have to be big. It just has to be consistent. Because let me tell you, success is not reserved for the most talented, the most connected, or the luckiest. Success belongs to those who refuse to give up. Success belongs to those who keep showing up day after day, long after the initial excitement has faded. Success belongs to you if you choose it. Forgiveness. Just hearing the word can stir up so many emotions, right? It's something we talk about, something we know we should do. But let's be honest, it's one of the hardest things in life to practice. Especially when the hurt was intentional, especially when the damage was purposeful. How do you forgive someone who knew exactly what they were doing when they caused you pain? How do you let go when the person who hurt you never asked for forgiveness, never even acknowledged the wrong they did? You've been there. You've felt the weight of that betrayal, the sting of those words, the loss of trust. Maybe it was a friend, a family member, someone you trusted with your heart, and they broke it. Maybe it was a situation at work where someone's actions derailed your progress and you were left picking up the pieces. And now you find yourself stuck, unable to move forward, weighed down by resentment, bitterness, and anger. It's a heavy load to carry, and the longer you carry it, the heavier it becomes. But here's the thing about forgiveness, it's not about them. It's about you. When you hold on to unforgiveness, you are not hurting the person who hurt you, you are only hurting yourself. It's like drinking poison and hoping the other person suffers. You're the one carrying the weight. You're the one replaying the hurt over and over in your mind. You're the one who is stuck in a cycle of pain, unable to move forward. I once heard about someone who held on to unforgiveness for years. They had been deeply wronged by someone close to them, and they couldn't let it go. They told themselves, I'll never forgive them. They don't deserve it. And for years, that bitterness festered inside of them. It affected their relationships, their work, their health. Every time they thought about that person, they felt the anger rise up again. But here's the tragic part, the person who hurt them had moved on. They were living their life completely unaware of the pain they had caused. Meanwhile, the one holding on to the bitterness was imprisoned by their own anger. It wasn't until they finally decided to forgive, not for the other person's sake, but for their own, that they felt the chains begin to fall off. In that moment of forgiveness, they took back their power. They realized that forgiveness was not about condoning what the other person had done. It wasn't about saying that the pain didn't matter. It was about freeing themselves from the hold that pain had over their life. You see, when you refuse to forgive, you are allowing the person who hurt you to continue controlling your life. You are giving them power over your thoughts, your emotions, and your future. But when you choose to forgive, you are taking back that power. You are saying, I will not let what you did to me define who I am. I will not let the pain you caused me hold me back from the life I am meant to live. And I know it's easier said than done. Forgiveness is not a feeling. It's a decision. It's a choice you make, not because the other person deserves it, but because you deserve peace. You deserve to be free. You deserve to live without the weight of that pain hanging over your head. There was someone who told me once about their journey to forgiveness. For years, they struggled with the resentment they felt towards someone who had wronged them. They tried to forgive, but every time they thought they had moved on, the pain would come rushing back, and they would find themselves stuck in that same cycle of anger and bitterness. It wasn't until they realized that forgiveness wasn't a one-time event, but a daily decision, that they were able to finally move forward. Every day they had to remind themselves to forgive. Every day they had to choose to let go. And slowly over time, the weight began to lift. You see, forgiveness is a process. It doesn't happen all at once, but each time you choose to forgive, each time you let go of a little bit of that pain, you are making room for healing. You are making room for growth. You are making room for your future. And let me tell you something else. Your future depends on your ability to forgive. You cannot step into the greatness that is ahead of you while you are still holding on to the hurt of your past. Unforgiveness keeps you anchored to a moment in time, a moment that no longer exists. But your future is waiting for you. Your purpose is calling you forward. And to answer that call, you have to be willing to let go of the past. Forgiveness is not weakness. It is not letting the other person off the hook. It is not pretending that the pain didn't happen. Forgiveness is strength. Forgiveness is taking responsibility for your own healing. Forgiveness is choosing to move forward even when it's hard. It's choosing to focus on what's ahead of you, not what's behind you. I want you to think about your own life for a moment. Who or what are you still holding on to? What pain, what hurt, what betrayal is keeping you stuck? Maybe it's something that happened years ago, something you thought you had moved on from, but every time you think about it, the pain is still there. Maybe it's something more recent, something that still feels raw and fresh. Whatever it is, I want to challenge you to let it go. Not for their sake, but for yours. Your future is too important to be held hostage by the pain of your past. So here's my challenge to you: forgive. Not because they deserve it, but because you deserve peace. Forgive, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary for your growth. Forgive because your purpose, your potential, your destiny is too important to be weighed down by bitterness and anger. In life, we often wear labels that others have placed on us. Labels that tell us who we are, what we are capable of, and what we will ever achieve. These labels can come from our past experiences, our failures, and the voices of those who doubted us. It's easy to let these labels define us, to allow them to shape our identity. But what if I told you that those labels are not your truth? What if I told you that you are so much more than what has happened to you? Imagine a time when you faced a setback, something that made you question your worth and your abilities. Perhaps it was a failure in your career, a broken relationship, or a moment when you felt completely lost. It can feel like those moments become your identity, can't they? It's as if the world is saying, this is who you are. You will always be defined by this, but that's a lie. Those moments do not define your worth, they are simply part of your journey. There was someone who experienced a devastating failure in their career. They had worked tirelessly, poured their heart and soul into their job. And then one day, everything came crashing down. They lost their position, their security, and with it, a piece of their identity. For months, they felt lost. They wore the label of failure like a heavy cloak. And every time they looked in the mirror, that's all they could see. They began to question their abilities, their potential, and their future. But one day, something shifted. They stumbled upon a book that spoke about resilience and the power of a renewed identity. It challenged them to rethink their narrative. Instead of seeing their failure as a dead end, they began to see it as a lesson, an opportunity for growth. They realized that the world hadn't ended, it was simply a chance for a new beginning. They made a conscious decision to redefine themselves not as a failure, but as someone capable of rising again, someone with new experiences to draw from. So they took action. They started by reflecting on their strengths, their passions, and their dreams. They began to surround themselves with people who lifted them up, who saw beyond their current circumstances. They stopped allowing that one moment to dictate their future. Instead, they embraced a renewed identity. With each step they took, they shed the heavy cloak of failure and put on a new mantle of possibility. What happened next was extraordinary. As they embraced their new identity, doors began to open. They found opportunities they never thought possible. They started pursuing projects that ignited their passion, and in the process, they rediscovered who they were. They learned that their worth was not tied to their failures, but to their resilience, their ability to rise, and their willingness to grow. You see, you have the power to redefine your identity too. You are not your failures. You are not your past mistakes. You are a collection of experiences that have shaped you, but they do not dictate your worth or your future. Each of us has the ability to rise above the labels that have been placed on us, to rewrite our narrative, and to embrace a new identity rooted in strength, potential, and possibility. Think about your own life for a moment. What labels have you allowed to define you? What past experiences have you clung to that are holding you back? It's time to challenge those labels. It's time to take a hard look in the mirror and remind yourself of who you really are. You are more than your past. You are more than the setbacks. You are capable of growth, change, and extraordinary success. Let me share another story. There was a young person who grew up in a challenging environment. They faced adversity at every turn: poverty, lack of support, and constant reminders that they wouldn't amount to much. For years, they accepted that narrative, believing that they were destined for a life of struggle. But something inside them stirred a flicker of hope that told them they could change their story. With every challenge they faced, they made a choice. Instead of succumbing to the labels others placed on them, they began to see themselves as a survivor, a warrior. They started setting small goals and celebrating every achievement, no matter how minor. They sought out mentors who believed in their potential, who saw them not for their circumstances, but for their capabilities. Slowly but surely, they began to transform their identity from one of victimhood to one of empowerment. It wasn't an easy journey, and there were setbacks along the way. But with each obstacle, they reminded themselves that they were not defined by their past. They embraced the belief that they could create a future filled with possibilities. They took responsibility for their choices, their actions, and their life, and in doing so, they shattered the chains of their old identity. This journey of transformation is available to each of you. Embracing a renewed identity is a conscious choice you must make every day. It means standing up against the negative voices, both internal and external, that tell you what you can and cannot do. It means taking responsibility for your own narrative and deciding to write a story that reflects your true potential. When you embrace your renewed identity, you unlock a power within yourself that is unstoppable. You become the author of your own life, no longer allowing others to dictate your worth. You begin to see that the obstacles you face are not barriers, but stepping stones to your success. You learn that your past does not define your future, it merely prepares you for what lies ahead. So here's my challenge to you: take a moment today to reflect on the labels you've been carrying. Write them down. Acknowledge them, but don't let them hold you back any longer. Then I want you to flip that narrative. What do you want your new identity to be? What strengths do you possess? What potential lies within you? Write that down too. Create a new narrative, one that empowers you, one that lifts you up. Life has a way of throwing us into the deep end when we least expect it. We all face moments that shake us to our core, moments of pain, loss, and disappointment that seem insurmountable. It's in these moments that we have a choice to let our pain consume us or to transform it into something powerful. This is where the magic happens, where we learn to turn our pain into power and reclaim our purpose. Let me share a story that illustrates this beautifully. There was someone who experienced a traumatic event that changed the course of their life. In the aftermath, they found themselves in a dark place, grappling with feelings of hopelessness and despair. They felt as though the weight of the world was on their shoulders, and every attempt to rise seemed futile. For a long time, they allowed that pain to define them. They wore it like a badge of honor, convinced that their suffering was a part of their identity. But one day, something shifted. In the midst of that pain, they had a moment of clarity. They realized that the pain they were experiencing wasn't just something to endure, it was also a source of strength. They began to reflect on how they could use their experiences to empower not just themselves, but others. Instead of remaining a victim of their circumstances, they decided to become a warrior of their own story. They started by writing down their feelings, pouring their heart onto the pages. Each word became a step toward healing. They found comfort in sharing their experiences with others who had faced similar challenges. They discovered that in their vulnerability, they could inspire others to rise too. This journey transformed their pain into a powerful narrative of resilience and strength. As they continued to share their story, something remarkable happened. The very experiences that once weighed them down became the fuel for their purpose. They started a movement, a community of individuals who were committed to turning their pain into power. They showed others that they could reclaim their purpose, that their past did not have to dictate their future. They transformed their pain into passion, their struggles into strength. This journey of transformation is available to all of us. The truth is, pain is universal. It is part of the human experience. But how we respond to that pain is what truly defines us. You can either let it break you or let it make you stronger. The choice is yours. Consider your own life for a moment. What painful experiences have you faced? What obstacles have you encountered that made you question your strength? Reflect on those moments, but don't stop there. What if you were to turn that pain into purpose? What if you could harness the lessons learned from those experiences and use them to propel you forward? I remember speaking with someone who had faced a devastating loss in their life. They felt as if they were drowning in grief, unable to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But in the midst of that darkness, they made a conscious choice to channel their pain into something meaningful. They began volunteering with organizations that supported others going through similar losses. As they reached out to help others, they found healing for themselves. Their pain became a bridge that connected them to a greater purpose, a purpose that allowed them to rise above their circumstances. This is the power of transforming pain into purpose. It's not about dismissing your pain or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about acknowledging it, understanding it, and then using it as a catalyst for change. Each of us has the ability to turn our struggles into stepping stones. The question is, are you willing to embrace that journey? Let's talk about resilience. Resilience is the ability to bounce back, to recover from difficulties. But it's more than that. It's the strength to turn your pain into power. It's the realization that every setback is an opportunity for a comeback. Life will throw challenges your way, but you can choose how to respond. You can let those challenges defeat you, or you can rise from them stronger than ever. There was someone who faced rejection after rejection in their career. It felt like a never-ending cycle of disappointment. But rather than allowing those rejections to discourage them, they used each one as a lesson. They analyzed what went wrong, sought feedback, and improved their skills. With each rejection, they grew more determined to succeed. Eventually, they turned those setbacks into a story of triumph, showing others that persistence and resilience can lead to remarkable achievements. Now, I want you to think about your own journey. How have you responded to the challenges you faced? Have you let them define you, or have you used them as fuel to propel yourself forward? Your past does not dictate your future. Every obstacle can be transformed into an opportunity for growth. It's time to take ownership of your narrative. It's time to turn your pain into power. When you embrace the lessons learned from your struggles, you reclaim your purpose. You step into a new identity, one that is defined not by what has happened to you, but by how you choose to rise above it. Life is a series of moments, and in each moment lies the potential for change. Yet, how often do we let those moments slip away? We dream of a better future of growth and transformation, but often we wait for the perfect time to act. We think tomorrow will be the day I start, or next week I'll finally make a change, but here's the truth: the perfect moment rarely arrives. The time to take action is now. Let me share a story about someone who found themselves trapped in a cycle of procrastination and self-doubt. They had big dreams, aspirations that sparkled in their mind like stars in the night sky. But when it came to taking action, they hesitated. They were waiting for the right conditions, for motivation to strike, or for someone to give them permission to start. Every day they would wake up with the same thoughts swirling in their mind: I'll get to it, I'll start tomorrow, but tomorrow never came. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, and before they knew it, their dreams began to fade into the background. They were filled with frustration and regret, feeling as though they were living someone else's life, watching the days pass by without making any meaningful progress. But one day, something clicked. In a moment of clarity, they realized that waiting for the right moment was a trap. They had been waiting for life to align perfectly before they took the first step. So they decided to flip the script. Instead of waiting for motivation to strike, they would create their own momentum. They would take one small action today, right now. So they made a list of the things they wanted to achieve and chose one item, just one to focus on. They started small, but that small step ignited a fire within them. They committed to taking action every single day, no matter how minor it seemed. Whether it was dedicating 10 minutes to learning a new skill or making a single phone call that had been sitting on their to-do list, they embraced the habit of renewal through consistent action. As the days turned into weeks, they began to see change. Each small action built on the last, creating a wave of momentum that propelled them forward. What started as a simple commitment to take action turned into a profound transformation. They began to believe in themselves again, to see their potential, and to understand that they were in control of their own success. You see, the journey to personal growth and transformation starts with that one decision to act. It's about recognizing that each moment presents an opportunity for change. Each action you take, no matter how small, is a step toward reclaiming your power and moving toward your dreams. Think about your own life. What dreams have you been putting off? What goals have you been waiting to pursue? The truth is, waiting can become a habit just as easily as action can. But action is what brings results. Action is what brings you closer to your aspirations. It's about taking responsibility for your future and deciding that you will not let another day slip away without making progress. There was someone who faced significant health challenges that had put them in a place of despair. They felt trapped in their own body, watching life pass by while they struggled to keep up. They knew they needed to make a change, but each day felt overwhelming. Until one day, they decided to take a single action. They went for a short walk just around the block. At first, it felt like a monumental task, but with each step, they felt a sense of freedom. That one action led to another, and soon they were walking daily. From there, they started making healthier food choices. They began to educate themselves about nutrition and wellness. The transformation was gradual, but as they embraced this new habit of renewal, they found strength they didn't know they had. Months later, that person looked in the mirror and hardly recognized themselves. They had regained their health, their energy, and their zest for life. What began as a single small action had turned into a life-changing journey. They took ownership of their health and their future, and in doing so, they inspired others around them to take action too. This is the power of immediate action. It's the recognition that you have the ability to change your circumstances right now. No matter how daunting the journey may seem, It begins with a single step. Each moment you hesitate is an opportunity lost, but each moment you act brings you closer to your goals. You have within you the power to change your story. You have the ability to rewrite your narrative and take ownership of your path. No one else can do this for you. You are the author of your life, and today is the day to pick up that pen and street.